incompetence extends to so many other areas. Now, it's been 2 years, and the Prime Minister has broken 2 promises, a key to his campaign. First, he said he would run modest deficits. Now we know his out-of-control spending is costing taxpayers over $100 billion. Second, he said he'd balance the budget in 2019. And now his government is telling us that they don't even know when the date is that the budget will be balanced. So, if the Prime Minister can't even read a balance sheet, how can Canadians have any confidence in anything else he's doing?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, in order to chase their goal of balancing the budgets at all costs, they created the Phoenix fiasco. They nickeled and dimed our veterans. They've continued to cut services for Canadians across the board. We made a different decision that they did. We told Canadians that we would run deficits so that we could grow the economy and put more money in the pockets of Canadians who needed it. That's exactly what we've done, Mr. Speaker, and that is working for Canadians.
Order. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Let's talk about Phoenix, Mr. Speaker. Let's talk about the Liberal decision to ignore a third-party report that said that the system wasn't ready, and they rushed ahead for political reasons. It was their choice to press the start button. They've had 2 years to fix it, Mr. Speaker. 2 years, and they have done nothing. Meanwhile, families across the country are suffering because of their lack of action and their incompetence. When will the Prime Minister take responsibility for his decision and stop trying to blame other people?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the member opposite just actually laid it out. The problem was that they had fired 700 people in order to book the savings that they were counting on, so they could magically balance the budget just in time for the election to try and save their skins on their terrible economic performance of the past 10 years. We did not create the Phoenix problem, Mr. Speaker, but we're going to fix it.
Order. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Order.
They started the Phoenix program before it was ready, ignoring the advice of a third-party report. They've had 2 years to fix it, and nobody believes that they're going to do anything about it. It's going to take a Conservative government to clean up their mess on this file. The incompetence is everywhere, Mr. Speaker. The Liberals campaigned on a new process to replace our fighter jets. They then abandoned that process and said that they would sole source Super Hornets. Now they're searching the reduced for quick sale bin for used fighters from Australia. Will the Prime Minister take responsibility and admit that we're never going to get new jets?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, the men and women of our military deserve the equipment they need to fulfill their responsibilities and deliver on their commitments. For 10 years, the previous Conservative government was unable to give the men and women of our forces the equipment they need. They completely botched the process. That is why we were proud to launch a full open competition yesterday to replace our fleet of aging fighter jets, not with 65 jets like they spoke about, but 88 jets to ensure that our military is able to fill the roles that we expect them to.
Order. If members don't like what someone is saying, they should keep in mind that their turn on their side will come, and they should wait for that. We had Santa Claus visiting earlier, in fact, and he was telling me he didn't like to hear all this heckling. He'll reinforce that, I'm sure. I have a good friend of his, is here to confirm that. Order. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, nobody's buying the Prime Minister's revisionist history. Let's take a look at the record. Strategic airlift craft, Hercules tactical airlift craft, Chinook helicopters, upgraded Aurora surveillance planes, and modernized Halifax-class frigates for our Navy. That's just a partial list of the Conservative government's success on the procurement file. What do we have in contrast? A fabricated credibility gap that is having us search Kijiji in Australia for used fighter jets. This is a disgrace to our men and women in the armed forces. When will the Prime Minister just take the blame for his own incompetence?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, if I might, a parenthesis, I know you're trying to invoke Santa Claus to help them out, but let's not forget the Conservatives like coal. Mr. Speaker, we take very seriously the responsibility we have to ensure that the men and women of our armed forces actually have the opportunity to do their jobs safely and with the right equipment. We take that extremely seriously after, for 10 years, the Conservatives botched the process.
Well, Leader of the Opposition.
They've been taking it seriously for 2 years, Mr. Speaker, and nothing's happened. Maybe it's time they start taking it super seriously, and we might actually get some results. Mr. Speaker, the incompetence extends even further. Canadian veterans are in limbo amid a backlog of applications for disability benefits. Now, I know the Prime Minister's going to get up 2 years into his mandate and try to find other people to blame. But let's remember, this is happening under his watch, a direct result from his decisions. So when will the Prime Minister stop blaming others and stand with our brave men and women in uniform?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Over the past 2 years, Mr. Speaker, we have invested in hundreds of millions of dollars for veterans. We have improved the benefits that they receive. We have reopened veteran service offices that were closed. We are ensuring that we live up to the sacred obligation we owe to our veterans and to their families. This is work we take very seriously, Mr. Speaker, and it is work we are delivering on.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Prime Minister articulated his sophisticated thoughts on the threats of global terrorism. He told Americans that it was super important to invest in investigative national security stuff. He then described the impact of violent acts of terror, saying Canadians are able to respond to, quote, bad things happening without, quote, falling into a bad space. After abandoning the fight against ISIS and cutting our armed forces, can the Prime Minister tell Canadians what kind of stuff he's investing in and how he plans on keeping those positive vibes coming to keep us out of a bad space?
Right, Honourable Prime Minister.
I'm glad the Leader of the Opposition's new duties haven't kept him from his daytime TV watching. The fact is, Mr. Speaker, we take very, very seriously the importance of both protecting Canadians' rights and defending our safety at the same time. We committed to Canadians in the last election campaign that we would get that balance right, that we would make sure that always we are defending Canadians' rights and protecting our communities at the same time. That's what Canadians expect. That's what we will do.
Order, order. I realize that all the members are in a party mood, I hope, but let's make sure we listen to the questions and the answers. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, after a week of avoiding me, that was the only place I could find him. Mr. Speaker, the record on these tax issues are clear. It was our Conservative government who lifted more than 1 million low-income Canadians off the tax rolls altogether. And the Parliamentary Budget Officer confirms that Conservative tax changes benefited low and middle-income Canadians far more than any other group. Right. This Prime Minister decreased tax revenue from the 1% by over $1 billion, and he's raised taxes on 81% of middle-class families who are paying almost $1,000 more per year because of him. So why is it that every time this Prime Minister tries to help the middle class, they always wind up paying more?
Right, Honourable Prime Minister.
On the contrary, Mr. Speaker, the very first thing we did was lower taxes on the middle class and raise them on the wealthiest 1%. And Canadians might ask why the Conservatives voted against those measures. The next thing we did was bring in a Canada Child benefit that gives more money to 9 out of 10 Canadian families by not sending child benefit checks to millionaires, a program that will lift hundreds of thousands of kids out of poverty. Right now, we're looking at ensuring the system no longer encourages wealthy Canadians to use private corporations to pay lower taxes than middle-class Canadians, and that's what we're going to stay with.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, there's one millionaire who's still getting help from taxpayers for their child care, and that's the Prime Minister. We know that the Prime Minister currently owns at least 2 numbered companies which help manage his vast family fortune. We also know that he incorporated a small business back when he was billing charities thousands of dollars just for the privilege of listening to him speak. But now he wants to kick the ladder out from other small business owners who are trying to get their own operations off the ground. Can the Prime Minister explain why he set up his speaking business? Was he one of the wealthy Canadians who incorporated to avoid paying taxes?
Right, Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, We recognize that we have inherited from previous governments, including the Conservative government, a system that favors the wealthy, that offers advantages to wealthy Canadians, not there for middle-class Canadians. We have committed, both in the election campaign and since, to fix that system, to change those rules, to make sure that we are giving help to middle-class Canadians or those working hard to join it, and not to the wealthiest Canadians. The previous government was quick to help wealthy Canadians. We're focused on the middle class and those working hard to join it.